Alright, so quick thing before we begin. We are about to get hypocritical and pretentious as shit. I have personally said multiple times in the past I don't really care about original intention or game integrity when it comes to remakes or retoolings. I vastly prefer Persona 3 Reload over the original game, if only for its gameplay refinements and changes. Does it mess with the original's intention? Yeah, probably, but I have a lot more fun with Reload than I do any other version. Donkey Kong 64, does making the tag barrel obsolete through a button press mess with game balance and overall the way each level was planned? Yeah, but I like it better this way. It's a lot more fun and a lot quicker. And when it comes to Metal Gear Solid 1, I prefer the Twin Snakes. It's a lot sillier, a lot more over the top, but not only do I just find it entertaining, I think for some moments it just adds to certain characters or scenes. And yet when Metal Gear Solid 3 gets a damn near shot-for-shot remake with the only major change being visual polish, now I have an issue with game integrity. Now I feel like the quality of a scene or the scene's intentions have been fucked up. Well, upon a mountain of other qualifiers and disclaimers, I just want to say this entire video and everything I say in it is a me thing. But whatever, Metal Gear Solid 3. I don't think many other people will have a problem with any scenes in this game's remake. I think most people's main problem with Metal Gear Solid Delta is just how little it actually changes about the original Snake Eater. But to me, that's a plus. Snake Eater has some of the best storytelling and character growth in its series, yes, but it also has some of the goofiest shit. And when the remake was announced, I was worried that a lot of that stuff would be gone. Basically that it would be the opposite of Twin Snakes. But they really nailed it. It could run better, but it's a visually gorgeous way to experience this game, and if you haven't tried Snake Eater, this is a great way to do so. For $70, maybe not, but price drops on PS5 Konami games are inevitable, so if you can score it for 50 or less, I'd say it's worth it. I even like a lot of the choices made here, despite personally feeling a bit weird that Kojima wasn't involved with this game, especially considering the situation that Konami had him in before firing him, and the fact that this is his game they're shot-for-shot remaking. That doesn't mean that others involved with the game weren't respected. While most voice lines in this game are reused, many of the actors came back to re-record old lines and record some new ones, and the fact that they went out of their way to get those old actors is amazing, and honestly better than Kojima did for a lot of them. Look, Kiefer Sutherland did a great job as Snake in MGS5, but it's well documented that Kojima didn't necessarily like David Hayter despite his iconic performance, so I don't think Hayter would have been respected this way by him. But Konami got him back on, and he does great as always, and it's amazing to hear him back. They also brought back Snake vs. Monkeys, something that no other re-releases had, and that's also great to see. And honestly, with how much Konami just completely mishandled just about every series it had for years, despite this playing it safe, it's nice to see a good Metal Gear game again. So obviously, I would recommend this as the best version of MGS3 overall, right? Honestly, nope, not at all. This game frustrated me in such a huge way, and it is just from a couple tiny little changes to a couple small scenes. This game may be a shot-for-shot remake, but because it's shot-for-shot, if anything in those shots is slightly off, it can mess with certain parts of the original. For the most part, this isn't an issue, but for one pivotal scene, it messes up the feel so hard that I kind of left this game disappointed, despite it doing so much right, because this game messed up the final scene of Snake Eater. Snake Eater's ending is infamous for just how insanely long it is, so I'll try to keep the summary brief. After Naked Snake kills his mentors, Snake goes home with Eva, and in the morning finds out a bunch of double agent nonsense that doesn't pertain to the video. Then as we see visuals of him receiving the title of Big Boss and being acclaimed for his actions, we hear Eva explain that Snake's mentor, the boss, was never truly his enemy. She basically got sent out on a secret mission to obtain a massive disk of data before things went wrong and the US basically sold her out, sending her on a suicide mission in which she had to be killed by Snake in order for the US to wash its hands of a nuclear attack. And she did it without question, seeing it as her duty as a soldier above all else. However, this breaks Snake. He sees it as wrong to betray someone so loyal and strong. His worldview is basically shattered. He didn't want to kill the boss, and now he finds out she died for a government that only wanted the target off of itself. After a photo op, he shakes no more hands, says nothing, and leaves. Now, so far so good in the remake. It's just as well delivered and well told as the original. Sure, I think the excess of bloom in the PS3 and PS4 remasters really emphasize how disassociated Snake is here, and we'll get into that later, but the facial expressions are fantastic. The scene where Snake is listening to the recording while smoking a cigar, the scene where he leaves the Oval Office, it's all done quite well. But then the actual best moment in the game happens, and that's where things get fucky. Snake heads into a cemetery as we hear that the boss's legacy will be that of betrayal betrayal, that people will only celebrate her death. Snake arrives at the grave of the boss, he leaves her flowers and her gun, and we see that Eva was right. Her grave doesn't even have her name on it. Snake salutes it, being likely the last and only person willing to do so besides her own son, and he just breaks down crying. And the game ends. This is my favorite scene in all of Metal Gear. The walk to the grave to the salute. It is all perfect and heartbreaking. Snake has been forced to say goodbye to different aspects of the boss throughout the game, but at the end he realizes she was always the person he knew, and he was forced to kill her. He doesn't care about his country, he doesn't care about the mission, he just wants his friend back. And he cries. It's beautiful. And the overwhelming light that consumes everything except for Big Boss in the grave emphasizes the emotion and agony so well. So what does it look like in the remake? Fuck you. Again, we're gonna be getting really pretentious here, but this legit made me mad when I saw it. There's a lot of pretty obvious visual changes here, and I know people are gonna say, Cole, it's just a lighting change. It's just a bit of different facial expressions. It's just a couple changes. But here's something I would like you to keep in mind for this, because it applies to a lot of my opinions on remakes and remasters as a whole. If a scene is great, then small details don't matter. You can change plenty, and as long as the major moments are hit, it can still work. However, when a scene is perfect, every detail matters. The lighting, the expressions, the words, the small, menial things, all of that matters. And this ending is a perfect scene to me. I would change nothing. So in short, my biggest issue could be summarized as, they changed it. But why should my opinion on this matter? What exactly do these changes exactly mean? Well, we'll start with the most obvious part, the lighting. Now, I've been using the older remasters footage for this video because honestly, I think the massive amount of bloom actually makes this scene in particular better, but my point actually still stands with the original. This scene is shrouded in light. It basically takes up the entire screen minus Big Boss in the grave, where in the remake, it's just realistically lit. But that's the problem. The light in the original is part of what gives it so much impact. It makes it feel unreal, dreamlike, and emphasizes that in this massive cemetery, the only two things that matter are Big Boss and this one unmarked grave. The light constantly feels like it's getting brighter as the scene goes too, making it feel all-consuming. Now, I could go off on a tangent about how the light represents death and how it consumes every soldier the same way, but that's not what I think the point of it actually is. One of the actual major points it adds to is Big Boss's intense disassociation. Throughout this final batch of cutscenes, while he listens to Eva's final message to him, it's visually apparent that throughout all of this, learning the truth, getting the name Big Boss, being awarded the highest acclaim, Jack is fading. He's barely there mentally. He's obviously angry, but throughout his scene with the president, his facial expression never changes. He's stiff as a board. I'm surprised we get any audio and the sound isn't just... Then, as we get to the cemetery, we see why. Snake is completely checked out. Nothing around him really registers. The only thing he wants is to see the boss's grave and honor her death in a way nobody else will. The bright light is not only a fantastic visualization of how nothing else around Big Boss matters to him right now, but also really pushes how much this game breaks him and how he can't be exactly like his mentor. At the beginning of the game, the boss emphasizes that a soldier's worth is solely to their country. They're there to live, fight, and die for the flag on their uniform. And Snake mostly believes that too. However, here he learns that while yeah, she died as she preached, that country who she dedicated everything to never cared about her service. They would throw her away and call another soldier a hero instead because of something that wasn't even her fault. The boss could take this. She was the perfect soldier. She gave birth while on a battlefield. Everything she was and everything she had left was her position as a US soldier. Snake, however, just can't. Snake is a born soldier. He's called as much in both this game and future ones. He sees himself as nothing but someone who will live and die in a fight. And at first, the thing he is dedicated to is his country. And as the game goes on and people are double and triple crossing each other left and right, Snake still stays on his mission. The philosophers, the overall conspiracy, that stuff doesn't matter as much to him as just getting what he came for and stopping the boss in Volgan, because they're both a threat to his country, and he was taught for years that his worth is to his country. But now he found out the most important person to him was taken, used for all she was worth, and completely disposed of. And he was the biggest pawn in the entire plan. Not only was the boss betrayed and used, but Snake was too. And the most he got was people going, "Wow, Snake, you did it. Now Russia doesn't think we snuck into their country and everyone loves you." Snake can't swallow that. He can't see himself as only worth something if he's serving his country, so he checks out. The series explores why exactly Big Boss would eventually become a villain, but it's this moment where he breaks, where his loyalty goes from to his country to instead himself and to other soldiers who would be used up and betrayed by the countries they fought for. Another reason the white works so well is how it's a carryover from the final boss. Snake's final fight with the boss is in this massive field of white flowers. It's one of the most striking visuals in the game. You've been in rough jungles this whole time, but here, it's visually gorgeous and serene, all for the most brutal fight Snake has to participate in. But it's also fitting because this is the way the boss wants to go down, in a beautiful field of flowers, limited hiding spots, one-on-one combat. And after Snake has to put her down, the flowers all turn red. After this scene, Snake does talk, he even smiles, but once he's home, that changes. That white that surrounds him isn't just disassociation, it's where his mind is at. He distracted himself, but once he finds out the truth, he's not able to leave that battle. Never able to leave the moments where the boss was still alive. Maybe because it could have been different, or maybe because it was so much to take that he can't escape that moment in his mind, especially when visiting her grave. In fact, I honestly don't think he's able to fully mentally leave that flower field until the end of Peace Walker. It's such an impactful and meaningful choice, and yet the remake does away with it. It's this overwhelming visual of Big Boss's pain and regret, and yet they would rather make it realistic. And you might think, well, Cole, it's not like this is a first-person game. We're watching a movie about Big Boss, not a movie from his perspective. Except I think that is objectively wrong. Not only does the game never leave his perspective, but I think you're forgetting the iconic opening lines of the game.
After the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
This isn't just a story we're observing. It's a story Big Boss is telling us. It's easy to forget considering he never narrates again, but that doesn't change the fact that this is his story from his point of view. So of course in those moments, what the president and his cronies are saying doesn't matter. Of course he barely remembers most of the cemetery, because none of that ever mattered to him. He was checked out, separated from it. But here it just loses so much of that impact and meaning. And sure, if you've never played the game before, it probably won't matter. But I'd find it really odd if someone who's familiar with the original and loved scenes like this sees it and thinks it even comes close. It's gone from brutal, emotional presentation to a dude just visiting a cemetery. And that's not even my only issue, but this next one is a lot more personal. The final shots of Snake breaking down crying. Look, in the new one, it actually looks good. The facial animation is subtle and realistic, and it still packs a punch. But damn it, it's just not as good as the original. See, I think the more detailed faces and cutscenes do aid a lot of Snake Eater, but back on the PS2, despite the impressive visuals of the time, you couldn't really do super subtle facial animations. So each one was just a little bit exaggerated, including in this scene. It's a small difference, but one that bugs me. Big Boss throughout the game has been betrayed, tortured, limbs broken, bees shoved into his bones, but he rarely ever shows genuine sorrow. He's battle hardened. He's lost a lot in his life and in battle, so he's numbed himself. But here, after learning that the boss stuck to her principles and yet was taken advantage of and punished for it, while feeling like nothing he's done was really worth it, and learning that he can't truly live by the code the boss instilled in him, he cries. He cries over his lost friend, his mother, the woman who made him who he is. This isn't him explaining in a monologue that he was lied to and is gonna take back what's his or whatever. It's him seeing that his master is dead and that her memory will be nothing but disrespected and spat on, and he just cries. That's why I prefer the more exaggerated facial expressions, because in the remake it looks like he's choking up, trying to hold it back, slightly dignified. But in the original, to me at least, it looks like the second the camera cuts away, he's going to be sobbing. Again, this is a me thing, but after the game really gets you to love Big Boss, to be with him when he just can't help but break down, it hits hard. If I could cry, I would probably be weeping along with him. It's one of the most human moments in the entire series, just someone mourning the loss of the person they were closest with. It's a kind of sadness that Metal Gear 4 took and ran with, and despite the fact that they clearly tried, I just don't think the more subtle expressions hit the same. And those are honestly the problems that I have. And yeah, I can see how I may sound pretentious or petty, but I want to remind you, this scene means a lot to me. If Metal Gear Solid 2 taught me that this series was great, this scene made me realize that the series was truly something special. In one of the silliest games in the entire series, the game portrays a subtle, heartbreaking group of scenes that so perfectly are able to sum up how exactly Big Boss became the person he is by Metal Gear 2. We understand why people respected him through his actions in the story. We understand why he was considered the pinnacle of his station by the gameplay, and we see what broke him here. I could make 10 more videos exploring why this scene is so perfect, how every second of it is just right for me. So of course, changing anything has a good chance of bringing it down. But the changes they made are probably the most frustrating ones they could have made. They focus too much on realistic lighting and expressions and not on what the original scene was trying to convey. It's not even like you can't make a scene with powerful visuals like this while also looking realistic. Metal Gear Solid 5 does that multiple times. This one just misses the mark. Again, man completely consumed by grief and regret who registers only his friend's grave, and scene about a guy in a cemetery. It also just really shot me down in a way. During so much of this game, even up to right before the president scene, I was thinking, man, they might not be Kojima, but they really understood the assignment. To seeing this scene and thinking, I don't know, man, maybe they just didn't understand the original game at all. I want to reiterate that quote from the beginning. If a scene is good, the small details don't matter. But if a scene is perfect, every detail matters. If a good scene changes, but still gets the same point across, it's all good. I think you can change plenty and still keep the impact. But if a scene so fully enraptures you to the point where when you think about a game, all that pops into your head is that moment and how you felt when you saw it, changing anything is bound to elicit negativity, at least from me. This isn't the only gaming scene I would call perfect. In fact, I recently experienced one, and that might get a short video too. But its remake got me so fucking irrationally upset that I had to talk about it. I know it's personal. I know it's kind of silly. But I honestly think it's a scene that's so important that you're better off playing the older remasters because of how much better it is there. Or at least that you should play the original before the new remake. Snake Eater is really good overall, so a faithful remake can't really be bad. It's just that they fucked up my favorite moment in the series, and I could not go off about it. To summarize, Snake Eater's ending scene is absolutely perfect. The lighting, the character animation, the music, it's all flawless. And the remake, they not only didn't make it better, but they took away some of its impact, and now it is diarrhea garbage. And because of that, not only am I never playing another video game again, but I'm never coming back.